Welcome to another edition of the Magic Latest Podcast, where we discuss everything Orlando Magic basketball. I'm your host, Jalon Dixon, and today we are going to get into a couple of summertime fun things for the Orlando Magic, talking about a two-way signing that could shore up the roster, Jase Richardson's performance at Summer League, Franz Wagner going to EuroBasket, and an interesting trade proposal that could add some more center depth to this team or even upgrade the center position, depending on how you view the player contract. With that being said, remember to like, comment, and subscribe for daily Orlando Magic content, and let's get right into it. Starting with some housekeeping, Orlando Robinson has been brought onto the Orlando Magic once again as a familiar face, filling that secondary two-way roster spot. Next to, I believe, the other two-way roster spot we signed recently was Ethan Thompson. The Orlando Robinson signing is very simple, right? It fills out the position for center, given the fact that Wendell Carter Jr. is here. You have Jonathan Isaac as a guy that can play small ball five. You have Mo Wagner, and you have Goga Batazde. Orlando Robinson is just a good signing, fill-out guy who can shore up that center position, given the fact that Wendell Carter is known to miss time. Goga Batazde is on an expiring contract, so he's a guy that not only could be potentially expendable, but he's also a player that is not a long-term option. On a two-way roster spot, you have the rights to Orlando Robinson long-term, and you have the potential to maybe bring him up for a more guaranteed contract if things play out relatively well. Not going to go too crazy on Orlando Robinson, but he is a guy that I feel like can be a high-level contributor in the time that he does end up on the floor. At 6'10", played 44 games last year between the Toronto Raptors and the Sacramento Kings. Averaged 8.1 points and 5.9 rebounds a game in his time frame with the Raptors, which is where he played the most, 35 out of his 44 games. Says he shot 34% from three on just over one attempt per game. I guess that's one of those things where you have to shout out the fact that he's willing to take the three, despite the fact that he isn't hitting a high clip. And he had two 20-point games while with the Raptors, including dropping 25, 12, and 6 against the Sixers. Granted, it's the Sixers, but he also played on a struggling Toronto Raptors team last season. So I would say that Orlando Robinson brings more of an offensive punch at the center position. If you're talking about what his role would be at any time that he steps on the floor, he's a guy that seems to be more of like an offensive operator, can pass out of the high post, good screen setter. I do think, again, the ability to step out and shoot the three is something that he at least brings to the table, even if it's not something you're going to ask him to do on a consistent basis. He's not Christian Wood or anybody like that you think is like, a relatively above average three-point shooter, despite the fact that their skill set, their skill set, I guess their skill set is probably a good way to phrase it, doesn't necessarily match like that play style. Yeah, he's going to be a guy that's more of a pick and pop big, very good at setting screens and different things like that. But don't want to go too crazy into Orlando Robinson. Again, he's going to be probably at best like an emergency third center for this team, especially because Mo Wagner is going to start the year probably not playing. He's probably going to start the year not because I believe he's still injured. So he's going to be an emergency third center at best. So, I mean, he's going to be a guy who I think could be interesting in spot minutes here and there, but nothing too crazy. Let's move on to Jase Richardson, man. Jase Richardson recently was featured in an NBA Sports Nation article focusing on the top 10 rookies who performed in Summer League over the last 2 weeks. And at number 3 was our good own Jase Richardson, who averaged 16.5 points, 55.6% from shooting from the field, 50% shooting from three, and did so in about 23 minutes per game. I'm going to just read some of what they had to say, and we'll kind of like react to it a little bit on our own here. It continues to be wild that it took Tom Izzo until the second week of February to start Jase Richardson. Ever since the diminutive point guard stock has been on a rocket ship, and he continued to prove why he's the biggest steal of the draft at number 25 overall to the Magic. Richardson is a dead-eye shooter who knocked down shots from three-point range at 50% clip in Vegas. The Magic were the worst three-point shooting team in the league last season, so the fit couldn't be better. While he's going to be one of the smaller players in the league next season, Richardson still showed impressive finishing touch in close thanks largely to his body control and core strength. He's never been a high usage player. He raised his usage rate slightly to 22% in Summer League, but he doesn't have to be next to Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner. The Magic are probably going to be really good next season, and landing 2 impact rookies in Richardson and second-round pick Noah Penda makes them even tougher. Hey, man, we've been saying this the whole time. Anybody who's been listening to this podcast since the very beginning, when it came to the Jase Richardson analysis or any rookie that was going to come through, that your biggest translatable skill in terms of being able to get on the floor immediately for this Orlando Magic team was the ability to stretch the floor. The ability to shoot the 3 ball at a high clip. 50% from beyond the arc on, I believe, it was about 4.3 attempts per game, somewhere around there. Like, this was, again, Jase Richardson didn't play a ton in terms of volume of games over the course of Summer League, where they played, I believe, 5 or 6 games. Jase Richardson didn't play, I think he played 2 or 3 of them, right? But 4.3 attempts per game, you'd like to see that closer to like 5 or 6 when he plays with the big, whenever he would have played with the big squad, because he needs to be able to add that floor spacing element. I do think his body control and ability to finish around the rim is going to be a very underrated skill given his size, because he is actually a high-level finisher around the basket, despite the fact that he's a bit of an undersized point guard. I also think that Jase Richardson's abilities shown in Summer League to be able to spread the floor is going to be really important, because I think that his position battle at the 2-guard position, more and particularly as a guy that can maybe fit over there and get more minutes that way, his position battle is going to be against another 3-point specialist, at least in terms of skill set, in Jet Howard, who we talked about last episode. I think Jase Richardson is actually the biggest roadblock to Jet Howard getting on the floor more next season, because I feel like Jase Richardson can step in and potentially play 2-guard on offense because of the fact that he gives real 3-point versatility as a guy who can operate off the catch, a guy who can operate off the bounce, operate out of chaos, and still be able to hit the 3 ball at a high clip. Jet Howard, as we discussed last episode, isn't even an average 3-point shooter as far as league standards are set, because he shot 29% and 31% in his first 2 years, and league average is around 35% from beyond the arc now. So Jase has the leg up right now as a guy who, at least in the early goings, because Jet Howard also struggled during Summer League in his early tenures as well, Jase Richardson already has a leg up on Jet Howard in a way that I feel like could create quite the position battle during the summer and training camp, because I think that Jase, his ability to put the ball on the floor, his ability to be a high-level play creator and play finisher at the point guard position, and the ability to simply step in and just be a knockdown 3-point shooter, all are skill set worthy things, or all skill set dynamic things that provide what the Orlando Magic need immediately. So it's good to see that he was shout out to Jase Richardson being graded the top 3 rookie in Summer League. For those who are wondering who the other 2 above him are on the list, the other 2 above him are Neek Clifford, another guy, interestingly enough, who I think was brought up on our perfect prospects list, and the other one in the number 1 rookie on their list was Colin Kneppel. But yeah, you guys let me know, what would you guys grade Jase Richardson's Summer League? I would give it probably like a B+. Again, would have liked to see him play a little bit more, but again, at the same time, if you're too good for Summer League, you're not gonna wear out a good thing, right? And in this situation, like, you don't want to overplay a rookie in Summer League, risk something take place, and so on and so forth, knowing that, this is a guy who, hope to see contribute in some way, shape, or form this upcoming season. But you guys grade Summer League for Jase Richardson. I think it was actually pretty solid. Next, let's move on to Franz Wagner, man. Franz Wagner and Tristan da Silva have been selected to go to EuroBasket on behalf of the Germany team. And for those who have been watching Franz Wagner, every time my boy goes European, he comes back as a different type of demon, man. Every time he goes, whether it's EuroBasket, FIBA, the Olympics, every time this man Franz Wagner goes overseas to go hoop and he comes back, he is in a different mode. So for Orlando Magic fans, this is a hype moment, man. This is a hype moment, because you know that the development is coming. The question is, what's going to happen with it? Is it going to become even more of a point forward as a facilitator, at the position, as a guy who can pass at a more higher level. Higher level. Are we going to see him continue to develop as an on-ball threat in terms of his ability to create shots for himself? Are we going to see him take more three-pointers? This is actually one of my points, and this is actually my most important point. Are we going to see him take more three-pointers and continue to expand his game as a guy who needs to grow into a 36 to 37% three-point shooter, right? Like, that's going to be the question. I believe that Franz Wagner, I'm going to rank them in order of what I want to see in EuroBasket. I'll be paying very much close attention. At number 3, I want to see Franz Wagner's ability to operate as a high post facilitator. I want this to be a guy who within 15 feet of the basket can make good decisions, whether that's finishing around the rim or being able to take the created space by being an active driver / mid-range shooter and create opportunities through driving kicks, dump offs, and different things of that nature to get guys involved in a real way. I think Franz Wagner as a point forward is an unlockable skill that he already is tapped into, but I feel like as he grows as a facilitator, particularly on a team like this one that now has so many more offensive weapons opposed to his past 3 to 4 seasons, his ability to facilitate at the power forward / small forward position, primarily small forward position, unlocks a different element for him. At the 2 for him in terms of this list, I would like to see him operate more as an off-ball threat more than an on-ball threat. I think that we understand what he is as an on-ball guy who can average 18 to 22 points per game. And I think we have a good understanding of the fact that he is a very good ball handler for his size at the wing spot. But I'd like to see if he can create more opportunity off the catch as a guy who can catch the ball in the mid-post, make a good decision. Catch the ball in the mid-range, make a good decision. Catch the ball on the wing, make a good decision, or hoist that thing up and knock down the 3 ball, right? You want to be able to see Franz Wagner operate more off ball because you're going to have guys who can handle the rock at a high level. Jalen Suggs, Tyus Jones, Desmond Bane, Paolo. Like, you have guys who can handle the rock and that you want to play through Paolo Banchero. So Franz Wagner's ability to open up his game as an off-ball threat and just simply make offense easier, both on himself and the guys around him, so impactful. So that's number 2. And then at number 1 is I would like to see him in EuroBasket putting up somewhere between 5 to 6 3-point attempts per game. Like, I would like to see that part of his game develop. I think that Franz Wagner is a guy who, if he can be a league average to above league average shooter on a real year-to-year basis, I think he's a dude who is in real all-star conversations. Like, I think that once you get to that point of having the conversation about him being not like a knockdown three-point shooter, we're not talking about 39, 40%. Like, if he can do that, great. But I think of the type of volume and usage that he already has, being a player who, for context, right, took 6 3-pointers just last year. You love to see that. The man's highest that he shot from the field was 36%. That was 3 years ago. He's a career 32% three-point shooter. I love that he got up to 6 3-point attempts last year. We need him to stay in that 5, 6, or 7 range, and we have to go from this very low percentage of just under 30% to league average at base. Let's get you back to that 35 to 36% that you were at around year 2 of your career. But let's do it on this higher volume. And if you're a 35% three-point shooter on this volume as a guy that already has shown good flashes and just last season bumped up to 24 points per game, you averaged 24 points per game shooting 30% from 3 and you took 6 a game. If you bump that up to shooting 6 or 7 a game and you're hitting 35%, you all of a sudden are averaging almost 27 points a game, 27, 28 points per game. Which doesn't sound like a significant jump, but also changes the conversation we're having around you when we're talking about the fact that you would be averaging 25, 26, 27 points per game next to another all-star caliber player who's averaging 25, 26, 27 points per game. And now you're being considered as one of the best wing duos in the league. You know who else we've heard that about? Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. That's the conversation that Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner are trying to enter, right? Is being one of the best, if not the best wing duo in the league. Why? Because the last time we saw that wing duo healthy, they won a championship, right? That's the goal. So Franz Wagner's ability to stretch the floor is going to be so important. So again, number 3, I want to see him improve as a facilitator. Number 2, I would like to see him improve as a guy who I think simply can build his game as an off-ball player. And at number 1, got to improve the three-point shot, man. He's capable of shooting 35% from beyond the arc. We've seen it. Now we just need to see him shoot 35% from beyond the arc on higher volume. Because, again, last year I think the volume increased in a way that you want to be proud of, but the percentage didn't match the improvement in terms of seeing him take more of those shots. Shot quality improved, shot percentage did not. That will be the thing that unlocks Franz Wagner's next jump going into next season. Last, we're going to end up on an interesting article that I read about yet another trade. Guys, I found a trade where the Orlando Magic actually trade for a center. Who knew? Jeez, man, I'm not going to lie. There were so many different articles in relation to chasing after, point guards and shooting guards. Shoot, I found an article that said that we should pursue Malik Monk. Maybe I'll read that in a different article, but yeah, this was a trade that would involve sending Tristan da Silva and Goga Batazde out in favor of going after Nick Richards, I believe was the overall trade package. Let me double check just to make sure. Yes, Nick Richards and Royce O'Neal for Goga Batazde, Jet Howard and Tristan da Silva. Not gonna lie, not hype about this one. I like Nick Richards. I think that as a guy who averaged 9 points, 4.7 rebounds, 2 assists, actually shot the 3 ball relatively well. That's Royce O'Neal. For Nick Richards, 9.3 points, 8.2 rebounds, and around a block a game. I mean, both of those players sound very effective, right? You get a guy who shoots the 3 ball at a high clip from last year, again, as it was mentioned beforehand. A guy who legitimately shot, really well from beyond the arc, and then you have a rim runner in Nick Richards. You get a guy who signed, I believe, for a 2 to 3 year deal in Nick Richards, as opposed to Goga Batazde, who's an expiring contract. I'm not as high on Jet Howard as you guys are, or at least as high as some people in the comment section have been. I believe that Jase Richardson has a really good chance of beating Jet Howard out for the backup 2 guard minutes next year. So I'm not as worried about Jet Howard particularly. But moving off of Tristan da Silva. Nope. I don't know about you guys, man, but I don't think that we go after Nick Richards if you have to give up Tristan da Silva. I think he's actually he's the force that's hurting me in this one. If you can give up Goga Batazde and Jet Howard for Nick Richards straight up, no Royce O'Neal, I'm actually cool with that. You get a young if you're the Phoenix Suns, you get a young prospect in Jet Howard who has a better pathway to playing on this team, given that the guard depth over there is not nearly as solidified as the Orlando Magic have been able to do over the last basically month and a half. And you get Goga Batazde, who ends up being an expiring contract for you at the center position, which is already pretty filled out, given the fact that what they did in the draft, and then obviously going after Mark Williams on draft night as well, right? So you get Goga Batazde as like a third center who's more really just salary dump. He's more of a salary dump for a team that desperately is trying to fix their financial situation. So if you could give up Goga Batazde and Jet Howard for Nick Richards only, instead of giving up Tristan da Silva as well and throwing Royce O'Neal in the deal, I do it. If I have to give up Tristan da Silva, I'm not having it. Yeah, I mean that's really my analysis for it. I think Nick Richards is a good center. I think he would be a good follow-up center to have long term, given the fact that Mo Wagner, I do feel like his days are relatively numbered still. I think that the Orlando Robinson two-way signing is an indication that we still do want to fill out that depth at the center position in a real way that will withstand the fact that a guy like Goga Batadze may be traded, or withstand the fact that a guy like Wendell Carter Jr. might miss games, or even Jonathan Isaac will significantly miss games, right? So I think the center position is still one to be filled, and I think if you have a rotation of Wendell Carter Jr., Jonathan Isaac, and a guy like Nick Richards, that could be really interesting, especially because there's some lineups that can be super defensively versatile, especially when it comes to the front court space, where you have Jonathan Isaac and Nick Richards next to each other. The shot blocking would actually go crazy. Shot blocking would be crazy. Jonathan Isaac at the 4, Nick Richards at the 5. You're not coming into the paint safely with this one. We're forcing teams to shoot the 3 ball at that point. And man, that is one hell of a defensive combo when you talk about also being able to create opportunities for real defensive rebound, then get out in transition as fast as humanly possible. Because now you have 2 guys who can offensive rebound at a pretty good rate, pass the ball up the floor, and make good decisions, man, at that point. So Nick Richards, I think, would actually be a really good pickup for this team. But again, I'm not giving up Tristan da Silva. You can take Goga Batadze. I'm not even crazy about that, but again, given Goga Batadze's contract situation, I'm taking that into consideration. Given Goga Batadze's contract situation, you can have Goga, you can have Jet Howard, but if you have to give up Tristan da Silva, I'm not doing it just to get Nick Richards, who's at best going to be our second-string center. Not going to do it when I think a guy like Tristan da Silva, although will be coming off the bench at the small forward position, I think has real upside in a way as a two-way wing for this team. And I'm not giving up on a two-way wing. They don't just grow on trees. They're a high commodity, and a player like this on a team like this, yeah, it's not one you just give up for a guy like Nick Richards. No disrespect. But with that being said, this is the end of another episode of the Magic Latest Podcast. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you guys like the Nick Richards trade. Give me your thoughts on Franz, Wagner, and Jase Richardson. I'm interested to hear what you guys say in the comment section. Remember, obviously, daily content, so stay tapped in. But until tomorrow, I'll see you guys later. Peace.